Hi, I'm Rob,
I'm Angie.
and together
We are TwinFinity.
we're out in the woods.
Somebody had requested that they missed our outdoor videos, and this is completely spontaneous. We don't even know if it's going to work, but we're giving it a shot.
Yeah, it's we'll take some behind the scenes pictures. Let's put it that way. We've been messing around for 10 minutes just trying to figure out how to prop the phone up that we have that's doing the video. We got one phone that's going to have the questions, and the other phone that's doing the recording. And we kind of have to makeshift everything. We got a little bit of snow in the background. It's our first hike of spring, and we thought, well, we got to do a video. So this is what we're doing.
It was so pretty out here, and I said to Rob, it's too bad I didn't bring the questions with us and the tripod and everything. We could have done a video out here since it's time to do a video. And then we just decided, well, let's make it work. So my phone is going to have the questions on it for us to read. So I'm going to actually read questions this time. I might get fired from that job because I'm not very good at it, but we'll give it a try. And thank goodness for Rob's phone, because his is our video taker.
So I'm going to just muck around with the phone here just a little bit. Try to give you a little bit of a view of dropping you on the ground. Dropped you on the ground. That was well done. We have a creek behind us. Really nice little creek. Some snow. Some of us. And the phone was propped up on the edge of the backpack. Hopefully I can get it propped up that way again. So yeah, okay. We haven't done this for a long time. Now let's see if I can actually just put the phone back the way it was.
Perfect.
Oh, the tree was actually more slanted.
Oh.
Yeah. I shouldn't be too worried about all this.
No, it's working. So both of our phones have less than 50% battery, so we don't even know how long of a question and answer we'll be able to get in. So we're gonna get to it. But I think first Rob has our little anecdote to share, which I'm glad, because again, we're winging it, and I didn't have anything on the top of my head, but he does.
Oh, well, my little anecdote was going to be how we got here,
Oh,
and we've
okay.
already talked about it.
Oh, okay.
There's
our anecdote.
Yeah. Actually, what I'd like to quickly talk about is the healing power of nature.
Ah, yes.
I was a little dragged out this morning because I stayed up too late. Angie wasn't feeling very good last night, and I didn't even know if we were even going to come out to the mountains today. But, we both got ourselves out here, and now that we've been out hiking for about an hour and a half, we feel so good that we can do a video.
Yep. Late nights and a stomach issue, keeping one of us up half the night and the other one staying up to nurture the other one, and we're still out here managing to do a video. So that is, like Rob says, the power of nature. It's like a magical place in here. Feels so good.
And there's a lot of the greenery on the ground. There's some moss on the ground. That very moss I just dropped you folks in. That's still green from last year. It was just buried under the snow, and now the snow has melted. It's all green again. So we didn't have to wait for spring to find greenery. It was already still here.
Yes.
All right.
I'm going to dive into questions just to make sure we can answer at least some. We might not get a whole hour's video in, but we'll do our best. Okay, so to start us off is a long question.
That's not a surprise.
No, it's not. So it says, how would you suggest communicating to the divine masculine, who theoretically does understand and accept the TF connection in his own way, clearly loves the DF, but is reluctant to embrace a relationship? Is it something I need to heal, something he needs to heal, or does it purely depend on divine timing? Should I hold some things I know back, or should I completely be honest about my experience and thoughts on the journey? Should I wait for him to come to his own conclusions and not contact him until he does, or should I invite him over to talk? That's a lot of should I's and what should I do's.
I would almost think that if the divine masculine loves the feminine, but is afraid to get into a relationship, it's because he doesn't understand everything about the feminine. Might accept that there's a connection, and might accept that the feminine understands the connection, but the divine masculine is not ready to accept their half of the connection as being relevant enough to them to be in a relationship with someone who does believe completely in the connection and believes that it is a core portion of the relationship. So yes, it's one of those things that you can admire someone. Let's take the divine out of this. You can admire someone, but if you don't believe in the reason that you admire them and believe that that is a reason that would carry you into and through and maintain a relationship, that would be really hard to get into a relationship with. So in my thoughts, it's all depending upon whether it's the connection that's a little too scary to accept, or whether there is just other bits outside of love that is also interfering with this divine masculine's ability to want to get in a relationship.
And I would also add, if the divine masculine understands and accepts the twin flame connection, they understand what it is, and it's not like a foreign concept to them, but they're still not ready, that just means they're not ready. So I don't think giving them more information is going to help. If anything, it would probably push them away further. Much like we've shared in other videos and shared even in our own story videos, the masculine processes information differently than the feminine. So they need to have it make sense logically. For the feminine, we feel things. We process through our heart, our heart and our soul more than our mind, where the masculine processes more through their mind. It has to logically make sense. And as you know from this journey, it doesn't logically make sense. So for them, they need to, as Rob used to say in our own connection, sort and file. So that's probably what he's needing to do on a subconscious level right now. So giving him more information or trying to explain things further or share your perspective is probably too much information at this point. So if I were you, I would just leave things be. Sure, still connect if he's open to that, but just keep things on a level that let him sort of lead the conversations a bit. Not to say you have to just stand back and not speak, but if you embrace something and he's just kind of pushing against a topic, just honor that and let him be in the driver's seat with what he's comfortable talking about, rather than trying to direct the conversation towards the topic of twin flames and the connection, and allow things to just flow, because they will. Like, we don't have to force this connection. In fact, it works better when we don't force it. It works better when it just flows in its right time, and when people are ready for the information, it comes.
If you're seeing the divine masculine quite often, I would say make sure you mix it up a bit. Maybe see him sometimes and don't talk at all about the connection. Let there sometimes be some meetings where it doesn't always have to have some connection talk. Just let it just be just the simple friendship bits.
Right.
To go for a walk, to discuss a bit about life, and continue on from there. Leave it alone. I'd say maybe every second or every third time. And then, if you have a couple of times where you haven't talked about the connection, and then maybe one time you do bring it up, then you need to do some serious reading when it comes to the eyes and the body language as to whether or not it's been more peaceful without the talk of the connection, or whether the talk of the connection all of a sudden has shaken them up a bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not every time you meet should there be almost a scripted, we're going to talk 5 or 10 minutes about the connection.
Totally. Just let the connection be what it is, because you don't have to talk about it for it to be there, right? So sometimes it's more important to just embrace the connection for what it is, rather than having to physically talk about it, if that makes sense. Next question?
Yeah, next question.
Okay. I met my twin in 2015, the month after he got married. Interesting. Wow.
Boy.
We had this back and forth just like you and Rob, and then finally had a reunion after a 2-year separation. Hence, he is still married. In fact, we came back together after he just purchased a new house. I have done a tremendous amount of healing work on myself for years, but obviously so happy when my twin returned. Even though I knew he is still in his karmic contract. I sense and feel his marriage is crumbling, and my twin is and has been awakening. However, I had a dream recently of a new energy coming into the picture, and come to find out it is his first karmic. She has come back in the picture, and I have always worked on letting go of the woman he is married to, and now I'm dealing with, let me switch, a new woman who was there prior to his new wife, or his now wife. I know you understand, Angie, because you had to deal with this with Karmic One. Did I ever? Coming back into the picture many times. I've been so patient during this 7-year marriage and afraid now that he may get a divorce from his karmic wife and that he will go to his karmic partner. I've done so much healing on myself with fear of abandonment and many, many, many other things that have related to trust. And here, after all these years and all that work, here comes another woman that I now worry about. It's like 2 steps forward and 10 steps back. Any advice you can give in this situation? Oh, yes, that is tough. I so understand. And what's tricky is we can think, I've done all this work, I've had years of work and healing, but as you probably well understand, healing is not a straightforward line of, you heal and then you're done. It's cyclical, right? And it's layers and layers and layers. And we're also not just dealing with healing in one situation or in one lifetime. We're often dealing with having to heal abandonment wounds from other lifetimes or core wound issues, whether it be abandonment or something else. We're working on it from multiple lifetimes, multiple situations. So please, the first thing I want to say is don't beat yourself up that, here I am having to start all over again and work on more healing. I thought I had done it all. Be gentle with yourself, because this journey is a journey of constant healing. Even when you are with your twin, and even though you think you're all healed, still things come up. So that's lesson number 1. Lesson number 2, the best advice I can give is if you can step back from the immediate view of the connection and understand the bigger overall picture. If you can literally zoom out and almost be like you're standing on the earth and looking down at your situation, knowing that this other person coming into your twin's life is there for a bigger reason. I know it sucks, and I know you're like, I don't care what reason they're there, but they're there to serve not only your twin, but you as well. So if you can look at it as a gift rather than a frustration, an annoyance, it will help you to move forward in easier ways than having to struggle through it. That's my advice.
This question, I don't like to use the word triggered, because quite often for me, when I am triggered with either anxiety or frustration. Usually not anger. I usually don't get to the point of anger, but I get frustrated. This question has stomped right on a trigger of mine.
Oh, wow.
It's stomped right on a trigger of sadness. For if I flip the roles around a little bit, if I was to pretend that my karmic one, the one that had been in my life for roughly 20 years, was my twin, then it would almost be exactly the position that the person who's asking this question is in. Because when I was getting ready to leave Karmic 2, Karmic 1 knew this and had no idea that Angie was in the background. So when I stepped away from karmic 2, I stepped right around karmic 1 and went back to a person who had been in my life before, went to Angie. Now in my case, I believe I was stepping towards my twin. In this case, this is a step from one karmic, I'm going to say back in time, to another karmic, still with someone who's getting skipped. I wish that I could sit here. We were going to stand. I wish I could sit here and be all positive and bright and cheery, but this is a real concern. This is a real question. This is a real scenario. Many people have seen this before.
Yep.
When the person that someone looks over their shoulder for is not the one that you hope they find.
And especially when you feel a relationship is crumbling and then you go, okay, good, because now this means we can be together. And then, wham, somebody else comes in the picture and you're like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, especially someone you've known about before. You know that there's some type of chemistry there. And, you know, if I had to give any advice, it would be not to live on false hope. I would, in your position, in the position of the person who's asked this question, I would kindly and gently, I think the word is confront the masculine and ask whether you have a chance or whether you don't.
Oh, wow. Really? That's interesting.
That way you don't sit around for another 3 or 4 years. Well, somebody knows that you're not going to be the one, and they know that you're waiting anyway, but they're too afraid to tell you. I would ask for their answer more or less up front. And if they say possibly, then yes, hang your hat on possibly and ride it out. If they say, I'm sorry, but I've made another decision, then at least you know and you're not waiting more and more years. Because they will undoubtedly take some time between where they're at and where they finish. You just need to know whether you have hope. And that's really, really tough. Really tough. But when you've spent all this time waiting, I think you could at least know whether or not you'll be having a futile effort if you wait more.
I'm struggling with that. Only because I don't know if we should ever be waiting for our twin anyway, ever. I know there's always the hope in the back of the mind, but you gotta move on with life because there's no guarantees.
This is why you need the answer, so that you can start to either move on or continue being where you're at.
True, but even if they give you the answer of no, that's going to devastate you. But their no now is not their no forever.
Not their no
Your
forever.
no was a no, and so I had to move on with my life, but it wasn't a no forever. So, or if they say yes, that's still no guarantee. They say, well, I just need to explore this relationship, but I'm still interested in you. Is that going to give you any peace either, though? Because then you're just waiting, and every time, they're in a rocky position, you're like, oh, yay, now it's my turn. And then it's not, and then it's not, and then it's not. So it's a tough situation. Like, honestly, I think you just need to move on no matter what, whether you get a yes or a no, because you can't just sit back and wait for somebody to show up. You have to show up for you, and that means carrying on with your life.
Boy, both of us have a different slant on this, and I like what Angie said. I really do. That could be a very good plan A. It's a case of knowing your situation well enough to be able to choose it.
Yeah.
I would also say, though, in this situation, boy, I don't know why I've got this so stuck, but this would also be the right time if you don't think that your twin understands your connection completely. This would be the right time to let them know what you believe when it comes to twin flame connection. Like, lay it all out there for them so that when you walk away, they understand why it hurts, so that they would also understand, if they choose to come back solidly into your life, what they're stepping into and what they would not want to hurt again. It'd be really rough if they went and looked back at that other karmic relationship and then decided not to go there, and then they come to you and then they end up with a whole huge learning experience that causes them to question why they left even the first one to begin with. They need to know at this point what you're about and why you've been in the background patiently waiting, and if things don't work out with either one of their karmics, what they will be coming to. They'll be coming to a ton of love. They'll be coming to a ton of interesting relationship that wouldn't necessarily be a normal relationship. But they need to know what this connection has meant to you so far, and why you're asking for this very honest answer right now, so that you have an opportunity to deal with the feelings of your connection and why it is so deep.
Interesting. Well, I'm gonna leave the advice there, because you're getting it from a masculine, so a masculine would kind of understand what the masculine wants, needs. It's an interesting situation, though. I can definitely feel your struggle and feel your pain,
Yeah.
and I certainly send you my love and compassion, because that's got to be crappy to be in.
Well, when you talk about masculines doing sorting and filing, when they're in a very tense situation of changing relationships, the masculine tends to really want and need more information to sort and file, so they might as well have your information too.
Well, this is true.
So, boy, I'm going way out on the limb there.
Yeah, you are.
I'm way out on the small branches.
Yeah.
But it's kind of how I feel about this. You're catching a masculine at a point of change. Maybe they would appreciate the honesty and information.
Maybe. That is only what you can decide, though. So, yeah.
Again, nothing easy.
Yep, for sure.
I can't remember the last time I had an easy question. I think I say that all the time.
Yeah. Okay, next question. I am aware of the energetic play between my twin and myself. I don't think he's aware yet. We're both married to others and have young children. I have young children, his are grown. Here are a few examples. We have known each other for 30 years, since we were kids, and our families are all friends, but we've never been Facebook friends. We can't be just friends. The time I told a friend about him, I was 38, and our whole history, he friend requested me 3 days later. One time I saw a picture of him and his wife, convinced myself that he wants to stay with her and doesn't want me, and that I should let go. I felt a pop in our shared energy, like a bubble bursting, and then just calm, free, light. And then 3 days later, he sent me a long and kind, thoughtful email, and the energetic attention returned. This journey is just amazing. After 6 months later, I had another pop in our energy, and this time was the aware of and curiosity of if he'd
Initiate
contact. This time it took 2 days, and after the tension returned. What do you think about the 2 to 3 day? This is why you read the questions normally. What do you think about the 2 to 3 day delay in response? I'm noticing a pattern that is strange and also reassuring that it's real. What do you make of the energetic pop? Is this what surrender feels like? Neither time felt like a surrender as much as a giving up, like my ego convinced me to move on. but I don't think it was a soul-based because it didn't last. I still feel the tension bubble and it hasn't popped for a year now, although we remain in occasional positive contact. Thank you so much for your advice. Oh man, that's interesting.
Well, that pop, that energetic pop to me is very much like just an extremely tiny burst of thunder after a spark of lightning. And that spark of lightning obviously carries a channel of connection in it. So there's the spark, there's a pop, and of course it's just, this is just painfully obvious because of all this coincidental timing, that it's a jolt on the other end that causes a response. Somebody at the other end is working away at their desk and going, oh my God, why did that thought come into my head?
Out of the blue, where did that come from?
Yep, lightning and thunder. The energy and the pop of the reaction, yes.
That's fascinating. It's almost like that's your guys' version of telepathy. Like there's this sort of energetic burst of energy that happens that reverberates. It's almost like you drop a rock in a pond and it creates the ripples. This is what the energy does, and he clearly feels it because obviously he reaches out every time there's a shift in the energy. So personally, what I would do is start using that to your benefit. You now have experienced this enough times to know that he feels the energy between you two. So I would start almost visualizing it, because you describe it like a pop. I would almost visualize it like a bubble and start feeding that bubble with all the positive thoughts, all the positive communication you want to have with him, the life you want to have. Start literally filling it with your manifestations. And then ask him through this bubble if that's what he wants too. And just see what happens with that. You know, like play with it, play with the energy and experience what comes back through it.
You know, something real simple. This is going to be crazy. I don't even know if I can accomplish this on video. But have a thought, and maybe the closest thing I could call this thought would be a prayer. Wrap it up and send it with a pop.
Oh, I like that. Yes.
Just send it with a little burst.
Yeah.
And see whether or not it can travel.
Yeah.
With all the questions that we get, can my twin feel me? Can my twin hear me? Does my twin feel all this energy? And here's someone that has all the evidence in the world
Totally.
that their twin hears them. This is just fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if you've watched our story videos. I described it, I can't even remember what video, but I described at one point when I was discovering the telepathy between Rob and I was starting to wonder if he could hear me or feel me, so I literally asked him telepathically, if you can hear me, text me. And I didn't say text me, you can hear me or anything like that. But I'm not kidding you, within, I can't remember if it was like 20 minutes or half an hour or 10 minutes, but it was in a very short amount of time, I got a text from him. And of course his text didn't say, I can hear you, but it's obviously, he's hearing you, he's feeling the connection. So play with that, use it, experiment with it, and start to master it. As you play with it and discover how it works, use it to your benefit, because it's obviously the way you guys communicate and connect. So like I did with the telepathy, I used it to my benefit, and it's how Rob and I ended up coming into union, because it was how I was guided to work with him and work with our connection. And not that I'm saying, just because you have this ability to connect this way, doesn't mean union's like right around the corner, because nobody knows that. That's for you and your own journey to know. But I'm just saying you can use it to communicate with each other and strengthen your connection and your bond and the energy around your bond. So what a magical experience, though. I've never heard that one. That's fascinating.
This is really great to hear.
Yeah.
Very few people have that. Enjoy it.
Like a
play with it.
distinct pop. Yeah, I think enjoy it, yeah, and use it. That's cool.
Yeah.
I like your idea. That's really neat. Yeah.
One more?
And let us know how it goes. I'd love to hear once you use it more. Give us an update. I was thinking we'd just go until your phone will tell us when it's low on battery.
Oh, yeah. I keep forgetting that. I try not to let my phone run low on battery, so I rarely remember that it has a low battery warning.
I'm wanting to get through a few questions because we get more questions than we answer in a month, and it's like I don't want you guys to wait months and months to get your question answered. So I'm just trying to honor more people by answering a few more questions. Okay, so this person says, I was recently told about your channel. I met my twin. First of all, welcome. Nice to have you. We have had a lot of new people lately. I don't know where you guys come from, but we're happy to have you. So welcome.
This past 6 months, there's been it seems to be a new wave of people coming aboard the journey.
Yes, yes. And in fact, I meant to say this at the beginning of the video, had we been doing this at home in our regular, normal, scheduled way.
Yes. And
I was going to just remind people, since there's a lot of new people, we often get questions of, do you offer coaching, and where's your website? And no, we don't even have a website. This is just what we've been guided to do as a service to the Twin Flame community. So we do not do coaching or anything else. This is just how we're meant to serve the community. So if you have questions and want some assistance, we're here to help. And there's always a link at the bottom of the video as to how you can connect with us to answer or get your questions in, just so you know. So back to this person. Welcome. Happy to have you with us. So they say, I met my twin in June 2021. I am wrapping up a divorce and she is still in a karmic relationship and has children. We've been in communication over the course of these 2 years, and the cosmic pull is very strong. We feel like we are together in 5D, but obligations are keeping us from being together in 3D. So get that. We feel like this is very close for us to be in union, but we are not sure when, and she is kind of leaning towards expecting the universe to provide a way / make something happen that is obvious for everyone's highest good. What advice do you have for twins in our situation?
can I go first?
Yes.
You need me to go first.
Well, no, I could, but I'm just feeling oh my God, do I get it? Because we were so much in that situation.
First of all, yes, definitely wait until both of you have your sign that it is time to change. If one person is ready to change, but the other one isn't yet, they don't have their reason, they don't have their understanding, they don't feel they've done enough learning where they're at, their 3D situation is totally not correct, then it's not the right time for you two to get into union.
Yeah.
You both need to have a bit of a pathway laid out in front of you, something you can step on, like stepping stones, something you can trust, and then you're both ready to walk the walk to get closer into union. Yeah, I'd like to definitely guide that you don't want to be dragging someone from where they are to where you hope they would eventually be. They need to see their own path.
Agree. But, and not to say but, because I hate a but, because then it's like you disregard the person's comment, and I'm not meaning to do that at all.
It's all fair.
I'm just saying our journey didn't, much like yours, it's not like a smooth, easy path was laid out, because we were waiting for that. In fact, if I can find, I don't even know if we described that in just one video or if it was a multitude, but if it was kind of one video, I will link it above if anybody is interested to watch that part of our journey. But we sort of waited and were hoping things would flow, because we were in that same situation too, where both of our relationships were falling apart, but they weren't falling apart fast enough for how we wanted to be together. And the pull to be together was so strong. So finally we had to make our own ways. Rob literally scheduled a day that he was breaking up with his relationship so that we could move on in our lives. And it was ugly, it was brutal, but it was our journey. At least I believe that. I think it was just the way it was meant to be for not just the two of us, but our two karmics involved as well, for their own healing journey and their own trauma that they needed to experience. But it wasn't pleasant. So I don't really have any advice other than follow your own inner guidance, because when you're coming into union, that pull is so strong, and it's that pull that will lead you, not necessarily an outer easy path that's going to make its way. You know, sometimes sure, the oceans part and it's just like, okay, here you go, you can be together. And other times it doesn't happen that smoothly. It's because you still have work to do in your journey together. And maybe the other people that are involved, you know, your other partners that you're either divorced from or getting divorced from, have an experience to be a part of this as well. And it's not always pretty, but it's for everybody's highest, best, and highest growth.
I think it's pretty important to understand that events in a person's life cause them to either make decisions or, I'm going to use the term, gain bravery. I think it's pretty important that yourself and your twin, when you're both looking at making changes, or maybe one's mostly changed in the direction of being available for the relationship, but the other one's got a long way to go, I think it's pretty important to make sure that you're both still supporting each other, so that when opportunities come along, that reassurance is already there. It's already part of your life. Now, for me, it was gaining the understanding of the twin flame dynamic, and knowing it was Angie that was part of that dynamic that was able to trigger me into making a decision with my existing relationship that I had. So it was the potential of coming into union that, and it wasn't a guarantee of coming into union, it was only a potential. But it did spur the end of one so that the other one would have a greater chance of starting. For a lot of people, it isn't quite that way. Normally they have to wait for something to break down with what they have so that there's nothing left to save, so that it's easier to walk away from what they have to move on to something else.
Yeah.
Everybody finds their own path, their own way, their own reasons, and their own bravery.
And I also don't want to burst your bubble, because I know when everybody's coming into union, it's like all rainbows and butterflies and you're so excited. So that's why I don't want to burst your bubble, but I also want to keep it real that almost every union that we've kind of seen or heard stories of, it's rarely just nice and smooth and easy and flowing and perfect and easy. Because union's not easy. I mean, it is and it isn't. What I mean by that is you're going to be put through oftentimes the hardest trials. You think the journey's been hard, you know, to this point. Yeah. It's almost like that was a cakewalk compared to sometimes what coming into union is. And it's almost like the universe, your own soul is sort of not testing you, but asking you, like, are you ready? Are you committed enough to stick by no matter what happens? Again, I don't know if you know our story, but our coming into union was incredibly challenging, and it took everything both of us had to stick by each other and work through it. There was lawsuits and court cases and cops being called and parents dying.
Yeah.
There was just so much outer chaos. But honestly, I wouldn't have had it any other way, because it strengthened our bond so much more, because we were that committed to each other. We wanted union so bad that there was nothing that was ripping us apart. And sometimes that's the experience you have to have, is to know how strong your bond really is. So not that I'm at all wishing challenges upon you. I'm just saying be aware that they might be there. It might not be just a nice, easy, smooth path like your twin is hoping for. Maybe you're one of the lucky ones, and maybe it is. but it just hasn't been what we've seen from a lot of people. There's usually a lot of challenge that comes with it. Any other advice or wisdom or to leave things on a happy note, since I just burst that bubble like somebody talked about in the other question?
Well, I'm as per normal, Angie gives a big long-winded answer sometimes, and so do I. Okay? But once in a while she says something that causes me to get lost in thought. If you went back over this past couple of minutes, you'd see a glazed over face that was barely blinking while I was thinking about how to portray what I want to say. And where I'm stuck is with the thought that Angie said that don't think it's just going to be all like butterflies when you get into the twin flame dynamic. It's so much different. But I wanted to try to frame this a little more positively about how the difference is. If you could imagine a nice flat skipping stone sitting on the edge of a lake, out on the dry side of the lake, but right beside the water. Occasionally the lake would have a rise in water levels, let's say in spring, and it would cover over the rock. In the fall time, lots of evaporation would happen. The feeder springs would not fill up the lake so much. The lake would drain down, and the rock would be outside of the lake. When you enter the twin flame dynamic in the relationship, it's like the rock being skipped on that lake. The rock sometimes bounces off the water. It's skipping along like a good old skipping stone would do. It's not all just nice, smooth flowing sometimes. But eventually that rock does slow down, it stops, and it settles into that lake in its new union. It's been covered over before, but in this case, it settles in its new union far into the lake like it's never done before, but it's been there before. It knows how to do it. It's just a different way, a different spot in the lake. And sometimes that journey, that skipping of the rock, is quite tumultuous. There's a lot of impact, there's a lot of splash when a rock is being skipped. But it's no place new. It's just a different way of being with that lake. There's a long-winded analogy.
But we'll leave it on that happy note.
Yeah.
That's a much happier note than mine.
Yeah.
I'm like, beware! It's gonna be hell! Sorry, I don't mean it to be that bad. Maybe yours won't be that bad. Okay, our next question. I read that one.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm deleting them as I go to keep track. Okay, my twin flame and I met 7 years ago. He was far more aware spiritually than I am. I discovered the twin flame concept 1.5 years after we met. I did not tell him anything. 1 month after, he sent me an article about twin flames. I love it.
Here we go again.
He didn't know I had found that out. So we reciprocally know that the other knows, but we could never talk about this because each time one mentions the concept, the other ran away. I always thought that I was the chaser, but it doesn't work with the twin flame model because the chaser is supposed to be the more spiritually aware one. So have you already met a reverse twin flame pair with a non-awakened chaser at the beginning? Is it normal to feel sadness, sometimes depressed, and deep craving for the other? It alternates with very good sometimes from nowhere, and then I feel very, very low, especially during the nights. I'm being awakened, so I pray or meditate. Also, when he will write back, I know he will, I just don't know when, and we start a fresh conversation after a long break, what would you recommend? I don't want to hurt him again by running away. I want to open up for a real, but how can I encourage him to trust me and open up more to me? So first of all, in regards to having the reverse experience, there's our low battery warning.
So this will be our last question.
Yeah, we'll make this our last question. There's no rules in the twin flame journey that everything has to work a certain way. Again, if you are not maybe familiar with our story, I was actually in the beginning of our journey, I'm the feminine in the connection, and I was more the spiritual one, but I was actually the runner myself, and Rob was more the chaser. And that's reversed too. So when you ask, do you know anybody that's reversed? Yes, we're it.
We've heard of this before.
We have lived it, that's for sure. Yeah, I've actually been much more the runner in our connection than Rob has, but I'm also more the spiritual twin rather than the matrix twin, and the feminine energy more than the masculine energy. And it's usually the masculine energy and the matrix twin, so the not awake sort of one, that is more the runner, and the feminine, or the more awake and the more spiritual, that is the chaser. But it doesn't have to work that way. So my advice as a former runner myself is to let go of the connection a little bit with your twin and start developing a connection with yourself. And find out, where does that runner experience come from? What is it that you're running from? Because you're not just running from them, you're running from yourself. And when you're running from yourself, you're also running from deeper things that are not so aware in the connection. And that might stem from childhood traumas that need to be healed. That might stem from abandonment stuff. There's so much that goes into all of that. My advice also, when he comes back and you're asking, how do I not run again, is exactly by doing this, being more aware of what makes you want to run in the first place. When you can be aware of it, then you can catch yourself in the moment. And then even if you can't say it to your twin, even if it's too vulnerable to say to them at this point of, I'm afraid, this is why I've pulled back, you can at least be aware for yourself, so then you can talk yourself through it, and hopefully then not be so afraid when they come back. You look like you have so much to say, so I'm like, I better stop. So he has a chance before our phone cuts us out.
No, I'm also sitting here with many thoughts that I'm trying to pull into a logical monologue here. I'm struggling with this. So what I'm going to start out with, and hopefully this gets me going in a direction that makes sense, is just because somebody was first or somebody was second in discovering the twin flame connection, does it really mean that they were also the most spiritually aware, or were they just the most vocal about the spiritualities? There's a lot of assumption going on here. Someone can become aware of a connection and all of a sudden be the expert at it, as opposed to someone who's been aware of it for, let's say, 10 years and has learned to a certain level, but the other person can catch up very quickly and understand the connection a lot more. So I'm trying to filter all of the who was first, who was second out of the question, and maybe get to the point that maybe what we have here is two people who both understand the twin flame dynamic, but maybe they both don't have the confidence in it in regards to each other, so maybe they are both runners.
For sure. And I actually just reread the question, and she's describing that she thought she was the chaser, but then she's also describing being the runner, and how do I not run from him? So yeah, you're always both, honestly. Because if you're running from them, you're also running from yourself. But if you're chasing them, you're running from yourself, so you can look at them and not have to deal with yourself. So there's runner and chaser in both sides of it. Just like Rob said, it's not like it's one piece has one piece of the puzzle and one has the other. You're both.
This is... I'd like to use the term easier, even though there's nothing easy about this journey. Both of you understand that there is a twin flame dynamic. I would almost think it would be easier for one or or maybe both of you at the same time, to want to talk about understanding the twin flame dynamic better, even if you have to, first of all, agree that maybe it's not about you two, both of you being in a twin flame relationship, but just wanting to understand each other's perspective of the twin flame dynamic better, since you both have the concept that you both know about it. So many times we get questions that are saying one knows about it, the other one doesn't.
Right.
In this case, even if if it makes it more comfortable to exclude each other from being part of a single twin flame dynamic, talk about it and understand it and have fun with it and play with it and learn from each other about it without always assuming that you're talking about the two of you being the actual twin flame pair.
Right. Yeah. So like you're saying, if you can remove yourselves out of it and just talk about the connection, but not your own connection.
Like quite often, and I use these videos as an example. Angie talks about the twin flame connection. I talk about the twin flame connection, but we get to talk about other people's twin flame connection without always referring it back to being our own.
Right.
It sounds like you two, the two people involved in this question, could talk about twin flames without it being about yourselves.
And that might make it easier, because it sounds like what's catching you both up is the fact of the vulnerability. The fear is causing the running, and until you both do a bunch of healing around what it is that you're running from, the intimacy, the vulnerability, all of that, then yeah, if you can just strip it away and just think about the connection, but not about yourselves in the connection. Just talk or even share about the twin flame dynamic without talking about yourselves in it, which is hard, because you got to remove yourself from it. But also really start looking at, what am I afraid of? What am I running from? Where does this stem from? Because that's where the healing comes, in order for you to both be vulnerable enough to talk about the connection with yourselves in it. So it takes a bit of work to do that, but it's worth it.
Yeah, I think you two have lots to work with there. It's just a case of finding a comfortable zone that doesn't create a running response in either one of you,
right,
quite as strong as it's been.
Yeah. But what a gift to both know. That's something to celebrate right there, because that's the hard part for most twin flame connections, like Rob said, is one knows and one doesn't. You're like, I want to tell them, but they're not ready. And so you got a good step forward just having that right there. So celebrate that piece.
Completely agree.
Yeah. All right. Well, before our battery completely dies, we're going to go. Thank you for enjoying some nature with us.
Yeah, this was not an option. It wasn't until we got to the end point of our hike and we're turning around, walking back to our vehicle, that it struck me that, by the time we get home and have supper, we might not have time for video, and yet there's not very many people out here today, and it's a nice day, and maybe we could do a video. And Angie was on the same wavelength. We did not discuss this. I think we came to this possibility all within about 10-minute span of each other.
Yeah.
She turned around and said, how about, and I was thinking, how about we do a video? But I let her finish her statement.
Twin flame magic. There you have it. So we love you guys, and
yes,
we will connect in another video to answer more of your questions. But in the meantime, have a wonderful month.
And happy spring 2023.
Yay, spring!
Yay.
For those of us in the northern hemispheres, anyway.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Late fall for some.
Yeah. Sorry for you. Oh, maybe you like fall and winter, though. It's okay.
That too.
Yeah. Okay, bye.
Bye.